You are 35 years old. You are going to slow down. At least that's what I've been being told for the past 5, even up to 7 years. Wait till you hit 30, wait till you hit 32, wait till you hit 35. I just got told yesterday I think I'm getting faster. I got told by a pro hockey player that I trained that I was fast. Okay, he might have just been nice, but it was still cool to hear. But the reason I'm able to maintain my speed when I play hockey and within sports is because I train for it. I don't stop. I haven't just cashed it in thinking, well, I'm getting older, so I'm automatically going to slow down. If you start now with building up the right strength, training for power, training for speed, it doesn't have to be super complicated. You don't need to do all these crazy ladder drills or super complicated workouts, but you do need to have structure and progression and consistency with your workouts. So I'm going to take you through what a typical leg day looks like for me that allowed for me to not only maintain, but also build my speed, my power, and explosiveness for on the ice. So let's jump right into it. No pun intended. So always starting my warm-up off with some sort of cardio. It doesn't have to be jump rope, but you want to do something that's going to elevate your heart rate a little bit. So went a little short there, but you can already hear me. A little out of breath. I'm not trying to wear myself out, but I'm trying to elevate my heart rate a little bit so I can raise my core body temperature, get myself prepped, get myself ready. But I don't want to wear myself out because we're going into some heavy lifting and some plyometric type training first thing. So I'm doing just enough, get a little out of breath, get a little bit of a sweat, and then we're going to do a little bit of mobility work. Your warm-up though doesn't need to take more than like 5 to 7 minutes. Okay, maybe a little bit longer depending on how much cardio you do, but you don't need a foam roll for 10 minutes. You don't need to do all the stretching. You don't need to do a ton of mobility work. You want to do just enough that's going to prep you, prime the movements that you're going to do, and get you feeling good. But you don't have to do all this activation, stretching, mobility work that a lot of people will promote. Because let's be honest, while I do train high-level players like pro athletes and some college players that have the time to do that, most of you watching this video are probably in the same situation I'm in. Busy professionals, got a lot going on. You play hockey recreationally. You don't have 2.5 hours to spend in the gym 4 or 5 times a week. You're thinking maybe 2 to 3 times a week for 45 minutes to an hour at a time. So don't waste a ton of your time doing this long warm-up, okay? Get after it, get your heart rate up, get a little bit of that mobility, that movement, hit your 10 checkpoints of movement where you're warming up all the joints, wrists, shoulders, hips, knees, ankles, the back, duh. But making sure that you're feeling good, nothing's really bothering you, and then we can get right into the workout. So I'm gonna do this one more time, and then we're gonna show you what the rest of my warm-up looks like. All right, for me, I got stiff hips. So the first thing I like to warm up, my hips and my lateral leg swings. Really doesn't matter the order in which you do these exercises. I'd always say kind of start with where you maybe feel the most tight. So for a lot of people, it's gonna be hips, maybe knees, but usually it's hips and low back. So we'll start with doing stuff there. I usually try to do like 10, maybe 12 per side. Kind of lost count already. Again, we're going to it feels good, feels loosened up, but we're not trying to do too much. I always talk to people about their warm-ups, whether just a regular warm-up routine, whether it's with your warm-up sets. The goal is to do kind of the bare minimum. And what I mean by that is you don't want to waste your time, but you also don't want to waste your energy either. If you were a track athlete getting ready to go do a 100-meter sprint, are you going to run before you do your sprint? Yeah, absolutely, because you got to prep yourself, you got to warm up. But are you going to go run a 1,600-meter, 1,500-meter all-out race right beforehand? No, because what that's going to do, it's going to compromise your force production in the sprint. Now, could you potentially run 1,500 meters or more or less a mile beforehand? Yeah, you could, but you're not going to do it at your full pace, your full effort. Really what you'd probably do is more run some like half sprints, maybe do a 400 meter, but going at like half your capacity that you can do, because you're going to do the same thing that we're doing here. We're just trying to get some blood flow and get yourselves just primed and prepped for the main things that you're doing. So again, don't overdo the warm-up, but do enough where you feel good. And there's times where my warm-up takes me 2 to 3 minutes because I come in, I've been with clients all day, I've been running around, I'm already feeling pretty good, I've been moving. Other times, like right now, I had one client this morning, went home, ate, took my dog for a walk, and I was doing some work where I was sitting on the couch in my office for a little bit. So I'm a little more stiff than I normally would be starting off a workout. So I might do a little bit more, but still, it's not gonna take me that long. Maybe a little bit longer because I'm talking to you guys, but overall, 7 minutes usually the max I ever warm up for. No matter the day, I almost always do this warm up. Sorry for the crotch shot, but doing a deep squat If you can't do this, work on it. It'll really help with your ankle, knee, and hip mobility. So I was never able to just drop right into this. I had to work at it for a little bit, but get yourself where you can sit in this position for about a minute and then work your way up from there. But once you're in this position, then we could add in some thoracic rotation, back and forth. Where the thoracic part of your spine is very mobile, so we want to make sure that we're maintaining that, because if the thoracic region of your back, so that mid part of the back, is not mobile, well, I'm still going to need to have mobility in my back to do what I need to do, whether it's in the gym or it's on the ice. So if I'm stiff through here and I can't move it as well, guess what my body's going to do? It's going to borrow mobility from my low back, most likely, or even of my cervical region. We don't want mobile areas of our body needing to borrow mobility from stable parts of our body. That's where injuries happen. So make sure that you're doing things to maintain the mobility in the areas you're supposed to be mobile. If you can't do that deep squat, you can grab onto something here, kind of anchor yourself, and get yourself to slide in here, and then even do a little shift around. So sometimes I'll do this with my clients. I got a couple of clients that have a hard time getting to the deep squats. I'll have them hold on to something so they can sink in, anchor themselves down a little bit more, and then I'll throw in some other thoracic mobility work. So like a thread the needle stretch. Can't do that deep squat, the thoracic rotation, you can try that. All right, last one we're doing 90-90 hip switches. So we're going back and forth, working on the internal, external rotation of the hip. One thing a lot of people get wrong with this is they want to just windshield wiper their legs. They just swing over back and forth. It'll help a little bit with the warm up, but to really focus on the internal, external rotation, what we want to do is this front leg, keep that knee pinned down to the ground as long as we can as we open up the hips. And at some point you're going to feel stuck, and that's when you want to flip over. You'll find this a little bit more difficult, and you'll really feel that mobility in the hips being tested. So we want to do that 5-6 times each side. Again, as little as it takes to feel good, but go a little bit more if you feel like you need to. Okay, so last thing we're doing for the warm-up is just doing a couple of warm-up sets of the first movement we're going to do. Again, not going anything crazy. We are going to go heavy with this today. And again, heavy is relative. So for me, it's, I'm looking to try to do around like 85% or so of what my 1 rep maximum trap bar deadlift will be. I got to work myself back up to where I was at before, but we're going heavy. So for me, that's going to be somewhere in like the 350, 375 range. For you, it might be 100 pounds. It doesn't really matter, but what it matters is the intensity, what you do. So we're just going to be doing 3 reps of this. Now for this first warm up, I might do like 5 reps. I could probably bust out, 25, 30 reps on this, no problem. I'm not going to do that because again, we're just trying to prep the movement. I'm not trying to do as many as I can. So we're just going to do 3 to 5, maybe up to 8 at the most for something like this. If I just feel like I need a little bit more movement just to get my body ready, prepared for the heaviness that we're going to hit. But we're going to do a couple warm-up sets for this, and then we're going to jump into doing a superset of contrast training. And I'll explain what that is when we get there. Okay, so before we get into our heavy sets, let's go over a couple things when we're doing the trap bar deadlift. One of my favorite exercises for all athletes, really all my clients, but especially for hockey players, because it's going to allow for you to really strengthen up that posterior chain. If you look at the position I was in, that first one, you can see it's pretty similar to how we are in like a power stride position when we're on the ice. But because of that hip hinge and the way it's loaded, that we're improving the grip strength. Yes, it does work the back a little bit, but the primary thing is glutes, okay? You hear people talk all the time about hockey butts. Well, there's a reason for that. You need big, strong, powerful glutes in order to be a big, strong, powerful skater. So this is one of the best ways to build that. A lot of the training for hockey and for sports in general will center around single leg work, what we call unilateral lower body training. We don't want to only exclusively do that. We still want to deadlift, we still want to squat. And really when I say deadlift, really what I mean is we need a hinge. You don't have to do this exact exercise. You don't have to necessarily even do deadlifts per se, although I would recommend it, especially with the trap bar, because it's safer and it's effective. But as long as you're hip hinging where your primary focus is on your glutes, your synergist muscles, so your secondary helpers are hamstrings, erectors, that it's going to be extremely beneficial for you getting faster, stronger, and also for injury prevention. Hockey players tend to have a lot of issues with their low back, tend to pull hamstrings, so strengthening those up is going to help prevent them from getting injured. To make sure that you're doing this properly as a hip hinge, you want to make sure that you're getting more flexion from the hips than you are from the knees. So when you're coming down, we'll see a lot of people will come down like this. Okay, you're looking at a little bit more flexion here from the knees than from the hips. Simplest way for you to remember this is that when you're doing it is that you want to try to maintain vertical shins, okay, and having a little bit more of a horizontal spine. So instead of being more upright, what we're going to do is we're going to straighten out the shins, push the hips back, and then allow yourself to bow a little bit lower to get down to the bar. And that's going to keep that tension here in the back of the legs and a little bit on the low back, not as much on the quads. This is not incorrect. It's just not what we're trying to target. That's going to make it more of a squat movement than it is a hinge. So here, what do you think about? I'm pushing my butt back, letting Arnold check out that nice hockey butt that I've been working on. Vertical shins. Grab the bar nice and tight. And then from here, I want to make sure I have all the tension out of the bar. And so what I'm going to do from this position, while I've already got that tightness going through the back of the legs as I grab the bar, I'm going to think about squeezing my elbows in towards my thighs. Other way you could think about this is if you had like oranges or lemons or whatever your favorite citrusy fruit is in your armpits and you're trying to juice it. Okay, so you're trying to squeeze the arm in. That's going to keep the lats tight and allow for you to get everything locked in so you can drive the weight up. One of my favorite people in the whole world that I love working with, amazing trainer named Cody. He's actually assistant general manager now over at Villa Sport Fitness here in Idaho. And he gives this great analogy of you want to think about your legs are the truck, the weight is the haul, we got to tow it, okay? And so to tow it, you have to attach it via a hitch. That's what your upper body's job is, okay? You're not pulling with the hitch. The upper body's not pulling this movement. It's latching the weight and then you're driving with the legs. Okay, so we're gonna grab nice and tight, squeeze those lemons, and drive with the legs. And again, just 3 reps. All right, last warm-up set before we jump into doing the heavier working sets. So do one more set here and then we're gonna warm up doing the plyometrics. So that's where we're gonna get into this contrast training. So again, I'll explain what that is after the set, but I'm still gonna maybe try 3, but I might only do 1 or 2 of this because again, I'm trying to save my energy, my force production for the heavy working sets. So this is about 320 because this bar is 50 pounds. So we're gonna add a little bit of weight depending on how this feels. And then we'll probably keep it there, maybe fluctuate it a little bit, but we're just going like roughly 2 to 3 reps on this for the warm up. All right, so we're about to hit our first working set. So I'm gonna go for 370 for 3 on this first one. 320 felt pretty good. I kind of wanted to go more, but just to be safe, we're gonna start off here. I can increase, but this is gonna be a weight that's gonna work pretty well for me for this first heavy working set. And then again, we're going to contrast training. So if you saw, I did like a warm up of doing box jumps. Not a huge fan of box jumps as a whole. They are a decent variation for jumps, but I was doing that just for my warm up. Right after I do this, we're gonna go right into doing actually some depth jumps where I'm gonna step off the box, creating more force on the land and then leaping or jumping out of that. The reason we do this is that there's a theory called post-activation potentiation. So basically what we're doing here, we're doing this heavy workload is activating more of our type 2 fast twitch muscle fibers that we need to do something heavy without wearing ourselves out. And that's going to have this post-activation, so creating more potential for motor unit recruitment for our explosive jumps to build more of that power. This is a way in which you can be a little more efficient with your training by combining these 2 things as long as you're doing it with proper load management. Stupid fly. We're doing 3 here and then we're gonna jump right into doing our depth jumps. All right, so 370 felt pretty good. So we're gonna try 420. Don't necessarily know if I need these or not, but I wanted to bring these in just to talk about it for a second. It is okay to use grips or straps if you need in order to help your lift. Now, you don't want to become reliant on them because building up your grip strength is essential for building your overall strength, especially as an athlete. However, these don't inherently just wipe out any grip strength gains you might get just because you're getting a little bit of assistance. But also keep in mind, the main thing we're working on here is that posterior chain. We don't want to limit what we're capable of achieving with building strength and power in our lower body, in our back, just because our grip can't keep up. And at some point, it's not going to be able to. So I'm not saying to use these all the time and just default to them, but if anyone tells you you can't use it, it's not a real pull, it's not a real lift if you use grips or straps, it's just uneducated. And so you need to do what's best for you and for what your goals are. But yeah, we want to improve and work on that grip strength. Another video, we could talk about that and ways to do that. But here, I haven't done this weight in a while. I don't want to limit what I can do just because my grip may not hold up. So we're going to strap up, get this for 3. So let's talk about the jump variations because I did a couple different ones there. I tend to like the first one I did a little bit more when you do that depth jump into a forward leap. It tends to have a little bit more applicability towards hockey player when you think about the force output that's required of us when we're skating. But I still like the vertical jump just because as a short guy, I like being able to jump high. At the end of the day, it doesn't make a huge difference. If there's one variation you like more than the other and you're more likely to do that one consistently and effectively, then by all means go for that one. I'll do a follow-up video in which I go over more jump variations that you can do because some of you might need progressions because you're more advanced even than I am when it comes to your athletic training. Some of you are going to need regressions because maybe you've had some sort of knee or ankle injury and that type of impact from the depth jump is more than you can handle right now. So find what's appropriate for you, but the important thing is to have some sort of explosive plyometric type movement right after doing the heavy compound lift. And again, that's just going to give you the biggest bang for your buck in an efficient way. Combining these two things as a superset where we're implementing the jumps or some sort of plyometric. You can even do this with sprints. I do a separate sprint workout on a different day, so that's why I'm not doing them today. As long as you are training hard, training heavy, and then adding in these type of plyometric movements, then you're going to see an increase level of speed and power, but you can't do it just once. Okay, remember, you've got to be consistent with this. So I'm gonna go hit this one more time and then we're gonna move on to the next exercise. All right, now we're moving on to everybody's favorite exercise, Bulgarian split squats, except that everyone actually hates these. But one of the reasons that people hate these so much is because of the balance and stability factor. Now for some of you, you need to work on that, so this may not be the right variation for you, but for a lot of us, we think it's cheating to hold on to something, whether it's a bench or in this case using a dowel. It is okay to do, especially in an instance like this where I'm trying to go heavy, I'm trying to contralaterally load my right leg on this one as much as I possibly can. So with my left hand, I'm going to help stabilize the movement while I do these because I don't want the balance to be a limiting factor how much I'm able to do. So I already did my warm-up set, which I filmed. You don't get to see because this idiot cut off his head, but now we're gonna jump into our first working set. I might go up a little bit from this. We're gonna go 5 to 8 reps on each side. No superset on this one just because these are so taxing and I don't want to limit myself on doing these because the unilateral, so single leg compound movements are so important for hockey players. Okay, while I catch my breath before I go to the next leg, 2 things. 1, it is okay to rest a little bit between legs, especially when you're pushing yourself hard like this. The second thing is there are 2 different ways in which to position yourself on these to better emphasize different parts of your leg. So if you're someone that wants to work more on your glutes because maybe you're quad dominant or you just want to build bigger glutes or stronger glutes, then when you do these, you want to think about having a greater hip hinge. Like we talked about with the deadlifts, we're looking for vertical shin angle, more forward leaning torso. That's going to put more emphasis, if I can find my foot. So if I'm here, more emphasis here on the glute, less on the quad. If I may be a hair closer and focus on more upright torso and more of a forward leaning shin angle, then it's going to be more quad. Both are great options. It just depends on what your goal is, maybe where you're more dominant, what you want to work on. So, but that's how you can, that's why you'll hear some people say it's quad exercise, and people say it's a glute exercise. It's both, but we can emphasize one area more than the other depending on how you orient your body. So that's how you do it. Look at that shin angle versus the torso angle. See, it's more flexion coming from the hip versus knee. or vice versa. So more upright, forward leaning shin, quad. More hinged over, bent over, more vertical shin, more glute. Last set of Bulgarians here. Oh, up in the weight to 75. A good measuring stick for you, no pun intended, is being able to hold half of your body weight with one dumbbell and be able to get reps. Ideally, you may be working your way up to be able to do 10 reps per leg. So this is a little bit less. I'm closer to 160 than I am 150, but for some reason we don't have 80-pound dumbbells here. We got either 75 or 85. So it's been a while since I've done these, so I'm gonna do 75. But if you're kind of wondering what a good benchmark for you is, it's just half your body weight, be able to hold it in one hand, and to see how many reps you can get. So we're gonna shoot for that here. I'm hoping to get at least 5, but shooting for 8 again. All right, so next up we're gonna do is a squat variation. So I'm choosing the belt squat because I love this machine, but also between the heavy deadlifts, the jumps, Bulgarians, I'm trying to limit how much tension and basically exposure my lumbar section of my back gets. So by doing this variation, I'm not getting any compression on my vertebrae. And so it'll just help protect my low back, because I have had issues in the past. It feels better than it ever has, but I'm still mindful of that. I will do some sort of bar loaded squats later on when I do my next leg day. So whether it's just a regular barbell or I might do safety squat bar. I don't want to completely eliminate that type of compression because it can help strengthen up those areas. But for today, because it's towards the end of my workout, I'm going to do something that's not as compressive. So we can do this, maybe a Zercher squat, dumbbell goblet squat, even like a hack squat machine where it's not as much direct tension, compression on the vertebrae. Could be a good option. But today we are going to do the Rogue belt squat machine. And just one quick warm-up set, just get a feel for it. Let's load it up. We're loaded up, we're ready to go. That was heavy. We're actually going to superset the squats with a line hamstring curl. Now, some of you might be thinking, why would you do that? Aren't you trying to minimize the amount of compromising of force production that you might have? And yes, that is true. We do want to be mindful of that. The thing is, your hamstrings are barely active in the movement of a squat. Now, they do help stabilize, because some of you are like, wait, I feel my hamstrings when I do it. You probably got a little weakness or tightness up in like the upper part of the hamstring, more towards the glute. But because when you squat, your hips and your knees are flexing simultaneously, you're lengthening from up the top of the hamstring, but you're shortening at the bottom. So there's not really any good overall tension in terms of fully lengthening and fully shortening. It is okay for us to superset here because the hamstrings really aren't giving us hardly anything with our squat. And again, this is a way for us to be a little more effective and efficient. If you're worried all about that and you have the time and you want to spread it out, go for it. This is, again, a way for us to be as efficient as possible with our time in the gym to make sure we hit everything we need to. And strengthening your hamstrings is absolutely essential for athletes and especially hockey players because of the force that gets put on them when we are in full sprint stride. So as you get faster and stronger, you also want to make sure that you're less vulnerable to injury. So I'm actually going to do a modification here rather than doing just a line hamstring curl. Typically I like to do the seated hamstring curl. It's a little bit overall better, I think, because your hips are in a flex position. So they're fully stretched when you go and you concentrically contract them from the knee. But here I'm going to do a modification, which I'm going to overload the eccentric, almost modify what it would be like to do a Nordic curl, because I wanted to get myself to the point where I can do at least 5 of them. Most I've ever done is 3 at a time. So it's a way where I can overload that movement to try to work my way up to getting that higher number. So what we're gonna do, get yourself, bring out my weight, everything's set. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna curl with both legs at a weight that's relatively light, and then I'm gonna drop one leg and eccentrically control it down. So I'm picking a weight that might be easy with both legs, but is a little bit too much for me to do with just one. And then we're gonna switch. And repeat. So if you're someone that is trying to get their first Nordic curl, this is a good way in which you can progress into it. Good little challenge there. All right, guys, thanks for joining me on today's hockey athletic training leg day. Give this workout a shot. Make sure you like, subscribe for more education in terms of hockey and athletic training. Also, if you're a personal trainer that needs help with programming, that is also part of my channel, which I offer education on there. So, but remember with your leg day, it doesn't have to be overly complicated. You want to make sure you're hinging, hitting your unilaterals. So you saw we did that with the Bulgarian split squats. You're squatting. We're doing some sort of transitional work, which today we did the jumps. You can do sprints. You can do some sort of carries. Making sure that you're hitting those main movement patterns, and then you can throw in the accessories as needed. So again, today was a simple, effective workout. I'm gonna do one last thing for myself, just because I mentioned earlier, I need to work on my hip internal rotation. So this is one you can throw in as a superset with the workouts if you want. You can do it at the end if you have time. Something you can just do maybe every 2 or 3 days, but just to work on internal rotation. So this is a great one for you guys to do. Thanks for being here. Take that foam roller, pin it to the wall, grab some sort of ball or some sort of resistance, and we're just gonna rotate in towards the wall, back, and then the other direction. This works on that internal, external rotation of the hip. Again, a little bonus one for you guys. Something add in to your repertoire of exercises if you're unsure if you need it or not. Quick little test for you guys. Get back in this 90-90 position and see how you can rotate up this way. If you're someone that can barely get your foot off the ground, or if you're someone like me that's got a lot of passive range of motion, but that amount of dead space there in between the passive and your active range of motion, probably something you should be working on. So that's one of the best exercises you can do to throw it in. Thank you again for being here. Like, subscribe, follow along. Make sure to keep showing up.